Another sweltering morning in Southern California. It's going to be a hot one today. And Constance and I don't have any air conditioning either. Southern California homes, they're not even insulated because it seldom gets this hot and it seldom gets very cold. But it can be miserable. So I want you to know to what ends I go to look good feeling this hot. Welcome to another morning of another installment of the Key to Solomon's Key, Secrets of Magic and Masonry, or is this the lost symbol of Masonry? And today I thought I would just read a couple of the blurbs from the back. Dr. Art Rosengarten, that has written several books on tarot and psychology, says DuQuette's book carries a ticking religious time bomb of historic proportions just waiting to explode. The implications for our times are provocative. And John Michael Greer, my good dear friend, who's also a 32nd degree Mason and author of Inside a Magical Lodge and lots of the best books on occultism today, says this intriguing look at intersections between Freemasonry and Western magical traditions will be sure to evoke outrage from many quarters. But it poses critical questions that deserve close attention from Masons, magicians, and anyone concerned with the nature of religion and reality in a post-Christian age. And that was John Michael Greer. Okay, enough of patting myself on the back. Chapter 11. Sorcery. When men stop believing in God, it isn't that they believe in nothing, they believe in everything. That's Umberto Eco. Without doubt, the most ridiculous and ludicrous charge still being leveled against modern Masonry is that of sorcery. One need only search the internet using the keywords Masonry and black magic to be bombarded with hundreds of websites that accuse the craft of everything from Satanism and devil worship to cannibalism and human sacrifice. Even as I'm writing this, Masons are being condemned in print as an evil race of devils descended from Cain or space aliens. My favorite accuses us of being shape-shifting reptiles from a secret world who form a secret world government that has ruled since the fall of Adam. It would all be uproariously funny if not for the disturbing fact that many of these people actually believe that what they are saying, and their malicious and misinformed hate speech springs from the most vile and dangerous nether regions of the human heart, from the very real devils of ignorance, intolerance, and anti-Semitism. I'm afraid it's inevitable that this book, too, because it treats on the subject of magic and controversial aspects of history and religion, will be held up by the ignorant and superstitious as more proof that Masonry is the blasphemous energy of the true faith. Today, however, probably to the disappointment of anti-Masonic webmasters, it's unlikely that I'll be imprisoned and burned at the stake for exercising my freedom of speech and voicing my personal beliefs. In the 14th century, the Knights Templar were not so lucky. Sorcery was one of the Inquisition's favorite charges because it put the poor accused in the hopeless position of having to prove a negative in order to beat the rap. Personally, I find it easy to believe that during their nearly 200-year history, individual members of the order did indeed engage in diverse forms of spiritual practices that would have been forbidden and condemned by the Church of Rome. But then, we must also remember that the Church would have probably condemned as satanic a host of other things that today we would not consider strange or evil at all. Yoga, acupuncture, transcendental meditation, creative visualization, herb tea, talking to a cat. The consistency of some of the Templars' confessions point in particular to the practice of consulting an oracle in the form of a human skull, or the head of an ass, or even a black cat. Such divinatory practices were not uncommon among Arab magicians of the period. Still, it's impossible for us to know with any level of certainty if the charges of sorcery had a basis in truth or not. Nevertheless, the air of magic has always enveloped the Templar image, and as we've learned, it's legend, not history, that takes up archetypal residence in our cultural consciousness and creates the traditions of secret societies. Keeping this in mind, let's consider what kind of abominable sorceries might the legendary Templars have been practicing. Among the most popular magical practices forbidden by the Church were, and are, those whose literature and traditions would have us believe they originated with King Solomon. In fact, there's a whole school of magic known as Solomonic magic, which encompasses a broad spectrum of techniques that range from making astrological talismans to conjuring demons and spirits into triangles, brass bottles, or other objects. It's called Solomonic because it's based on manuscripts pseudepigraphically attributed to the legendary king himself. It'd be unwise for us to dismiss these documents as valueless, because we know they weren't written by King Solomon himself. Some source materials boast provenance of respectable antiquity. Some experts suggest anywhere from the 1st to the 7th century CE. Modern translations of several of the classics of Solomonic magic are currently in print and grace bookstore shelves around the world, providing inspiration to new generations of serious students and practitioners, and a source of mischief for incautious would-be wizards. During the time the Templars resided in the Holy Land, however, such texts were only available in Hebrew and Arabic. Arguably, the most colorful and effective variety of Solomonic magic is known as Goetia. That's Goetia, Please pronounce it any way you want. And is found in the first of a collection of 5 books called the Lemegeton, or the Lesser Key of Solomon. These papers are dated 1697 CE and appear to be one collector's attempt to have his favorite ancient texts of Solomonic magic copied and conveniently bound into a single folio. They bear evidence that their language has been modernized and that they were transcribed from far older manuscripts. The centerpiece of the Lesser Key of Solomon is a list of 72 spirits drawn from a number of ancient traditions and instructions how they may safely be called forth. Each spirit is described in detail, along with special powers and abilities it supposedly can provide the magician. The second section of the book contains pertinent excerpts of this book. Okay. The second section of this book contains pertinent excerpts from that text. At first glance, Solomonic magic appears to have all the trappings of black magic. In fact, it's very much like a scene from a Gothic horror film. The magician first casts a circle on the ground or floor of the magical temple. This circle is protected by the numerous names of God found in the Bible, along with the names of traditional archangels and Kabbalistic words of power. I've got an illustration of that in the book. Let's see if I can find it real fast. That's just the classic one. You can find it anywhere. The magician, properly dressed and armed with the magic wand, stands in the center of the circle, and with the aid of pure will, magical words and gestures, he or she conjures a demon from the infernal regions into a magic triangle placed a few feet outside the circle. The triangle is also surrounded by 3 traditional words of power that will keep the spirit trapped safely inside. The magician then compels the spirit to recognize him or her as its lord and master, and then charges it to perform some task. And the book, some task that tradition and the book says that the spirit is capable of executing. As you'll soon discover, the classic procedure is much more involved and complex than this, but I think you'll get the general idea of what kind of magic this is. It all sounds pretty wild and dangerous, and in fact, it is. But before you jump to the conclusion that such an enterprise is the nadir of primitive superstition, I would like you for a moment to pause and view such an operation not as a magical ceremony, but as a psychological exercise. A psychodrama, whereby we call forth and isolate previously uncontrolled potentialities within ourselves and redirect their heretofore chaotic and destructive energies toward constructive ends. Now, we do this naturally. Every time we exercise self-discipline to master a skill and bring out hidden talents. For example, when I was 12 years old, I wanted to play the guitar. Learning how to play the guitar was the object of my magical operation. In order to do that, I first had to conjure a guitar to visible appearance. This was accomplished by first invoking a divine power greater than myself, my parents, then by means of a program of intense prayer, incessant whining, and sacred covenants, promises that I would practice hard and eventually pay back the money. A real guitar finally materialized in my hands. Then I created a magic circle by isolating myself from the myriad diversions of adolescence while I focused intently upon the work at hand. I then evoked one by one the demons of my uncoordinated hands and fingers and trapped them in the triangle of will, determination, and practice. Finally, I mastered the spirit of melodies, lyrics, and rhythms of songs I wished to play and made them my servants. Until I mastered these demons, I could not call myself a guitar player, magician. Like a fellow craft mason, I was not yet a master. I did not yet have King Solomon's pass to travel to foreign countries, neighboring towns and cities, and earn master's wages, play in a dance band, and make $20 a night. Other personal demons are more dangerous and harder to master. Indeed, they can be deadly. How many of us can truthfully say that we've never allowed greed or jealousy or insecurity or lust or laziness to ruin a potential triumph? How many times have you said to yourself, I am my own worst enemy? These uncontrolled bad habits and character flaws could be personified as malicious spirits who pop up at the worst possible times to sabotage our best laid plans. Wouldn't we love to master them and force them to work for our benefit instead of our undoing? Certainly, from one perspective, the Goetic magician's hell is his or her own psyche. And the infernal spirits are portions of the unconscious mind, or unbalanced and misfiring aspects of our emotional life. Up until the moment we evoke and redirect them, these demons remain uncontrolled and undirected. The 72 spirits that are cataloged in the Goetia and who appear in the second section of this book are convenient personifications of these various potential powers and abilities. What makes them dangerous is the fact that unless they are called forth and forced to labor like Solomon's genie, labor in harmony with the magician's will, they will continue to run amok and work their mischief in our lives. This is precisely what magical tradition tells us King Solomon did in order to gather a labor force to build the temple of God. But does this type of magic really work? I assure you it does. Did the Templars engage in such practices? We don't know. It's clear that the Templars not only had the opportunity to be exposed to such practices, but because of their secret knowledge, considered themselves spiritually exempt from the church-imposed proscriptions of such behavior. The multiple Templar confessions concerning the oracular head or Baphomet might point to a magical operation of this nature. Does Freemasonry teach or encourage such practices? Most assuredly not. Why then, you might ask, am I about to dedicate a significant portion of this book to the practice of that particular form of Solomonic magic? Because within the sealed vault of this dark and forbidden spiritual practice can be found a certain formula of magic that, if used with skill and courage, fulfills the Kryptos promise of wonderful things. The key to Solomon's key and the true lost symbol of Masonry. But in order for us to actually use Solomon's key, we must come to the full realization of who we are and where we fit in to the great cosmic scheme. Tomorrow's chapter is Initiation. I hope you'll be here to hear that section of the book. Until then, I'm going to hurry and turn up the fan and banish the demon of heat here and get on with my day. I hope you are enjoying this, and I hope to see you tomorrow. Until then, continue to be good to yourself, stay cool, and be good to each other. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Love is the law, love under will.